Well, let's get into the news of the day. It looks like Labor has already kicked off some of their New Year's resolutions, with the latest and the first being a scare campaign against Peter Dutton. Jim Chalmers is reportedly heralding the way for a new Mediscare campaign, accusing Dutton of undermining the National Health Insurance Scheme and pushing down wages. And can you believe it? He's threatening that Dutton will raise electricity prices, as if the government has any grounds to talk about that. To unpack this and more, let's bring in my panel, history lecturer and author Stephen Shavura and the Spectator contributor Terry Barnes. Welcome to you both. Terry, let's start with you. Another year, another Mediscare campaign. We've been here before, haven't we?
Well, we have, and I have. I mean, I'm the original $7 GP co-payment guy from 2013-14, so it's all my fault. Blame me. Everybody else does. But certainly, look, I think the fact that Jim Chalmers is rolling out Mediscare 2.0 or 3.0, because it was 2016, 2019, then they won in 2022. But clearly, I think that Peter Dutton is a pretty serious threat to Labor actually hanging on to government. So the Treasurer is ramping it up, the Prime Minister is ramping it up, the Labor Party campaign gurus are ramping it up, because they know that they are in an existential fight for survival here, and Peter Dutton is a serious threat to them. And so they're going to throw the kitchen sink, not just the personal abuse that the Victorian Labor Party has tried, but anything that he's been associated with. And he was a former health minister in 2014. So it's all his fault. No, don't blame Peter, blame me. So take it out on me, guys in the Labor Party. Take it out on me, Prime Minister. Just leave Peter Dutton alone, because bear in mind that when it comes to health issues and health reform, because of what happened in 2014, the Coalition has been spooked about reform ever since. And they love bulk billing just as much as Labor does. So there's going to be no change. So that's a really false scare campaign, just ramping up yet again.
Yeah, well, I agree with your analysis. I think the polls are showing that Peter Dutton is definitely in with a chance when no one gave him any chance just a couple of years ago. Scare campaign, silly memes regarding nuclear power. We'll talk about the personal attack on Dutton in just a moment. But, Stephen, they can attack Dutton as much as they like. The fact is the economy speaks for itself, doesn't it? They've failed to curb the cost of living. Inflation is still too high. Chalmers is urging the public to be optimistic, as if that's the best they've got. Grocery bills don't lie, power bills don't lie.
I know, and I'm half expecting that Jim Chalmers' next move is going to be to ask us to join him in singing "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life," because they are getting desperate now. The fact of the matter is that interest rates since Labor got in have risen 12 times. Productivity is down, and the national GDP has gone backwards for the last 7 quarters. And on top of all this, we've still got a massive immigration problem that Australians are not happy with. We've got a Labor Party still recklessly pursuing net zero, which is going to be at the cost of our coal, that the Labor Party seems to absolutely no plan to grow the economy. All they ever do is pretend to be Santa Claus, saying that they've got a whole bunch of new handouts for everyone, but there is absolutely no plan on how any of this is going to be paid for. And the rise in support for them is among younger mortgage holders up to the age of about 34, because they're the ones really feeling these interest rate rises. And I think Liberal are going to make government at the next election because of this.
Well, we talked about some of the attacks on Peter Dutton. The Prime Minister's been forced to get involved over an ALP post. This is out of Victoria, personally attacking Dutton and his wife. Here's the meme that they posted. The caption reads, "We all know that one couple," and a secondary line stating, "Justifying dating your new partner to your friends who don't like him." Stephen, this is highly offensive and can I add, completely immature, and even worse, bringing Peter Dutton's wife into the argument. There's just no excuse for this.
that's the really bad thing here, bringing his wife in. I mean, there's a rule in politics, and generally all parties follow it, and that is you never bring families into the political debate. Otherwise, it's pretty much no holds barred. The ironic thing is that the Labor Party have this new word that they like to keep applying to Peter Dutton, and it's this word Trumpian. They keep saying he's Trumpian. But if anyone is behaving Trumpian right now, it's the Victorian Labor Party, because they're engaging in personal invective, not just against Dutton, but against, they're bringing his wife into it. So, yeah, it's very, very bad form. Not surprised, because Labor support in Victoria, first preference Labor support in Victoria is down to 30%. So they're getting pretty desperate.
Well, it's interesting, Stephen, that you compare this to, Trumpian tactics. At least Trump's funny when he has a go at the other side. The Victorian ALP secretary, Terry, said that the post was a comedic meme. Well, I got to say, as comedians, the Victorian Labor Party make pretty good economic managers, don't they?
Well, again, I think they're showing that they're running scared of the coalition federally, and they're even running scared of the Victorian coalition, even though that's been a clown show for so long. But certainly, I think the Victorian economy, if we're talking about a referendum on the Victorian government coming up in the federal election, as it did in 1990 when the Kane-Kerner government was taken to the cleaners at losing 8 federal seats, I think, if I remember rightly. I can see that repeating again, and clearly the Victorian Labor Brains Trust think that going after the Dutton family, as not just Mr Dutton, is good politics. I just think it's bad politics. My old boss Tony Abbott used to say that MPs are volunteers and families are conscripts, and I think that's the way that it should always be. And look, I'll give Mr Albanese some credit here. I think the fact that he actually put the kibosh on that as soon as he knew about it is to his credit.
Yeah, well, I noticed that Jacinta Allen, the Victorian Premier, when asked about this yesterday, had no comment, but she condemned the social media post today after the Prime Minister got involved. So read into that what you will. I want to talk about Queensland for a moment, where obviously they've got a new government, and the new Transport Minister, Brent Mickelberg, has thrown support behind an idea that was originally proposed by the former Labor Premier, Stephen Miles. That's a cap on daily fuel price hikes. The new Transport Minister also wants a national inquiry into petrol prices. Now, I would be the first to say yes to lower petrol prices, but Terry, do you think this is a good idea, and will it really make much difference?
When are we going to actually see the LNP in Queensland stop pretending to be Labor light and actually pretending to be a centre-right government? I mean, everything they've come up with since the election seems to be mirroring Labor, me-tooing Labor, and here we go again. But look, when it comes to a cap on petrol prices, that is a very unliberal thing to support. I mean, we actually believe in a free market, don't we? But when it comes to an inquiry into petrol prices, I actually think that's a worthwhile idea, especially if the AFCCC is doing it, because we've got the boom and bust cycles we see, over time in the capital cities, and petrol goes up, petrol goes down, petrol goes round and round. And that's where the fuel companies, where the retailers get into that, the distributors, is something I think we need to know more about. But I think we also need to actually understand the taxation treatment of petrol too, because of particularly the double taxation of petrol excise and the GST.
Yeah, I was going to say, if governments are so worried about the price of fuel and want to really help us, they could always remove some of that taxation and excise, couldn't they?